All right, so how to apply? So when you start gathering your documents and you're looking at schools to apply, the the most important documents for schools in Ireland are typically your high school transcript, your GPA, your test scores, so SAT, ACT, AP, IB exams, um, and those are going to be top priority. There are schools and departments that may need extra documents or letters of recommendation, a personal statement, a counselor rec, but that really depends on the program you're applying to and the school that you're applying to. But most importantly, the academic scores are going to be priority. When you're applying, as Amanda mentioned, you typically apply directly into a certain program, a specific discipline, like engineering or architecture or English. When you are applying, you are able to apply to multiple programs. So that varies by school as well. Some schools allow you to apply to 2, 3, 4, etc. And that varies, but you can apply to more than one option if you are unsure which direction you'd like to go. There are also a couple of ways to apply as well. So the first is applying directly to the university through the university's website. So you can go to each individual school's website, you can see all of the requirements outlined, and you can apply that way. Additionally, some Ireland schools are also on the Common App, so you can look in the Common App system and pick which ones you want to apply to that way as well. For schools who are on the Common App, it doesn't make a difference either way. You can apply directly or via the Common App. There is no benefit either way, whichever one you choose is fine.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about fees and finances because I think a lot of people might be under the assumption that studying internationally is going to be a lot more expensive than studying within the United States. But in a lot of cases, that's actually it's a myth. So the average cost of attendance that we've estimated is about $38,000 per academic year. I would note that tuition and cost of living do depend on the individual university or city that you're living in, and even tuition fees might vary depending on the program that you're studying. So it's very important to do your research and to look into each of the universities in Ireland that you're applying to determine exactly what your tuition fees are going to be. We do offer tuition scholarships for international students, or maybe even specifically for students from the United States. So look into that. The government of Ireland also, may offer some scholarships as well. So we do offer some assistance. And then all of our schools, all of us represented here and several other Irish institutions actually are on the list of approved foreign schools by the US Department of Education, which means that you can use FAFSA aid in terms of loans to fund your education, both your tuition and your housing and other living expenses while you're in Ireland. We also accept veterans benefits. So if you yourself are a veteran or you have a family member that you can use their veterans benefits, those can be applied toward your educational costs at your university in Ireland. We've also included a couple of kind of sample out-of-state costs for universities that we know might see a lot of students from Ohio. So if you look at the costs of studying in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, as opposed to in Ireland, if they're not comparable, we're actually a little bit less expensive than going out of state here in the US.
All right, a little bit about campus life, because we know you want to know what's going on campus and how, if you can have the same experience. Absolutely, yes, you can have that same college experience as any US college here, and even more. So we have lots of opportunities to join our sports clubs or our student societies, and these range from academic subjects to special interest subjects. And our sports, you can also usually choose to play either socially or competitively, which is great. We also have student unions on campus, and this is a vital resource resource for, especially for new students, but throughout your time on campus. They act as an advocate for students' rights. They also organize events, different things like that. So it's another great way to have that college experience. Also, opportunities to travel. You're already traveling to Ireland, but you'll have further opportunity to study in another country if you wish. So that could be either summer program, semester, or year-long program. And we always encourage students to take advantage of that while you're abroad. And then also support. We know that all students, will need support from time to time, but especially international students, being that you're moving abroad. So we do have specific resources for that, but these are just a few examples. So academic support, we offer various types of tutors, as well as disability services and career services. And then personal support, we have peer-to-peer counseling, professional counseling, and then of course health services and chaplaincy as well. And then resources specifically for international students. So many of our institutions in Ireland will have offices dedicated to international students, either to put on events or to help you meet other students like yourself. So there's plenty of ways to get involved and get to know people and still have that same great college experience.
All right, after graduation. So as Amanda mentioned, every campus in Ireland has a campus career services center. So these are going to be very familiar and similar to the career services center that you're going to find on a US campus as well. So they are very well positioned to help you find internships and jobs after graduation, either in Ireland, internationally, or back home in the United States. And as Maggie mentioned earlier, your degree from Ireland is going to mean something. So you will have the full spectrum of career opportunities back in the United States as if you graduated from a United States university as well. Dublin and Cork are major centers as well for European headquarters and businesses. So companies like Google and Facebook and Airbnb and Apple and many pharmaceutical companies, etc. They all have major offices in Ireland, which makes for an excellent opportunity to be connected in via the Campus Career Services Center, network while you're there. There are plenty of opportunities for internships. So Ireland is an awesome place to be globally connected with, via business. Speaking of networking, all of the Ireland schools also have extensive alumni networks. So between the alumni networks in your home country, back in the United States, and Campus Career Services Center, those a great combination to help you find a job when you graduate. And then lastly, Ireland has a really cool and unique student visa scheme where if you are interested in staying back, the student visa scheme allows you to stay back in Ireland for up to 2 years after graduation to work.
All right, and now we're each going to talk a little bit about our individual universities and why we think they're special and why we think you should come to study, particularly with us. So I'll start it out. University College Cork. We are located in lovely Cork, which is the second largest city in Ireland and is in the southeast of the country. We are an urban campus, so we're actually about 15 minutes away from the city center in Cork. And what I personally love about Cork is that it's a very small town community. So everything is very walkable. People are very friendly. It's safe, and but also it's a great kind of European metropolis feel as well. So it's a perfect balance for me personally. So you have access to cafes, shops, theater, nightlife, music, sport, and all those great things that people love about Cork easily from our campus. We were actually voted the world's first green campus because of our commitment to sustainability and environmentalist initiatives. And we're ranked first in Ireland for the student experience. So we actually take a very holistic approach to student health and well-being, making sure that the whole person is nurtured. We have degree programs in a lot of different areas. There are actually over 100 throughout the fields of arts, humanities, and social sciences, computer science, engineering, business law, and even medicine and dentistry. Our campus has over 22,000 students, and around 15% of our students are from outside of the country, so about 3,300 total, and they represent 104 different countries. And one unique thing about our degree programs is that most of them include either industry placement and or study abroad experiences folded right into the curriculum. So it's another way that we ensure that our students are work ready and world ready once they leave our campus. So that's a little bit about Cork, and I will hand it over to my colleague Kendall to talk a little bit about UCD.
Thank you, Maggie. So as you can see, UCD has very similar program fields that span all the way from architecture to zoology. We have over 270 degree options for both undergrad and postgraduate. But I want to specifically highlight the liberal arts and sciences program. So ordinarily, you apply directly into a 3 to 4 year program into a specific subject from the get-go. But UCD is very unique with this liberal arts and sciences program that you can apply to, which is mainly geared towards a student who may be deciding between subjects. So not for the completely undecided, but if you apply and pursue this program option, you would work with a staff member and a counselor to curate your first year with different classes between subjects that you're most interested in, and then from there you would move directly into whichever chosen pathway for your second year. And that is a very common and popular option with our United States students. We're ranked again in the top 1% of the universities in the world, as is most other Ireland schools as well. But we're uniquely ranked #1 in Ireland for graduate employability. And I think that is a good nod towards our Career Services Center, who is used to working with all the international students on campus. So UCD is the most international campus in Ireland and the biggest, with almost 30% of our students being international. We have the only global center on campus for student activities like Thanksgiving celebrations, Super Bowl parties, etc. So we have a wonderful array of students on campus that come from countries all across the world. And our campus specifically is actually just outside of Dublin, so it's a little more suburban feel, about 2.5 miles from downtown city center. So it's very approachable and consolidated, easy to navigate, but then you can just hop on a bus on campus and get right into the middle of the action in only about 20 minutes. Now I'm going to pop over to Amanda.
All right, thanks so much, Kendall. So Trinity College Dublin, you can see here we've got a lot of similar programs, excuse me, pardon me, to my colleagues here. Lots and lots of course options you can choose between that you can combine together, as well as specific specializations within these courses. Trinity itself was founded in 1592, which is just mind-boggling to me because it's so much older than the US itself. And we're really proud of that history. We're located in the center of Dublin, so right in the city center, which is wonderful. Dublin as a capital actually has a very small city feel to it, so you don't feel like you're in a huge city. And especially as you walk on campus, you do feel like you're on a university campus rather than in the middle of a large city. But I always like to highlight a couple of the things that are special to Trinity. And one of those is our dual BA program with Columbia and New York. This is a really unique experience where you spend 2 years with us at Trinity and 2 years over at Columbia in New York, and you receive a bachelor's degree from each school. And that specific program does have various options to choose from within arts and humanities and STEM subjects as well. But a couple of other things, we are currently first in Europe for producing entrepreneurs, which we're really proud of. We've got a launch pad on campus for students to get any sort of business ideas off the ground. And we're really proud of that, being able to hold on to that for the last 5 years. But another unique aspect is our personal tutor program. So every student does receive a personal tutor from the first day that they're with us, and that person is kind of seen as an advisor, someone you can talk to, and get advice about your program, kind of touch base with to see how things are going, and that's a great resource to have as well. And then lastly, I'd love to highlight our scholarship specific to US students. I know many of the institutions in Ireland offer this, but we love being able to assist wherever possible. So we've got a partial scholarship that we offer specifically to US students. But Trinity is a great place to come, steeped in history and a reputation for excellence, and producing quite famous faces and names that we're very proud of. And we'd love to see you at one of our campuses soon.
Great, and then this is our contact information for all three of us. I don't know if we mentioned it at the top of the presentation, but I don't know if you could tell, but we are all Americans, and we are all based in the United States and look after students and counselors from the state of Ohio. So there's our contact details there, and if you have any questions about any of our universities or about living or studying in Ireland in general, we are happy to help. So please do stay in touch, and let's go to maybe some questions. Kendall or Amanda, can you see any questions there in the chat box for us?
None at the moment, but feel free to pop those in now. We do have a bit more time, so we can answer those for you.
Yeah, maybe we'll touch on a couple of frequently asked questions that we didn't mention in the presentation that I know we get a lot on the road. Amanda, are there any that you feel like maybe we didn't touch on that you think the audience should hear while they're with us?
I suppose the biggest question on students' mind is going to be entry requirements this year. I think that's one that I've been getting in every school visit and every fair I've been able to attend. And I'd say this will probably vary across the board, but lots of students haven't been able to take SATs, ACTs this year, and are wondering, what their chances are of getting in and what we're going to be looking at. And I think we already covered it in the slides themselves, but I think also it's worth noting that for Trinity specifically, we will be flexible this year with what we're looking at, whether it's your grades themselves. We definitely still looking at GPA, but also looking at those references and personal statements, and any other criteria that will help us to understand your academic background. But I think it's worth, maybe we can each say what our schools are going to be considering this year.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'll say that while generally we would require SAT or ACTs, we're very much aware of the current situation and the issue with access to testing facilities, safe access. So we are currently reviewing our testing policy, and we're hoping to have an announcement in the next few weeks. But for right now, I can say that we are reviewing applications on a case-by-case basis, and we are going to take this very unique year into consideration if students are unable or unwilling to present test scores in their applications.
Yeah, I can echo everything that Maggie just said, and UCD is currently looking at what flexible options would look like, and we're hoping to have a more formal policy in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Amanda, there's a question I think for you there regarding the dual program with Columbia. Could you maybe take a couple minutes to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I started writing a reply, but definitely better to answer live. So yeah, so the question says, how does the dual Columbia University and Trinity College BA program work, and what are the requirements? So this program, everyone spends the first 2 years at Trinity, no matter your subject area. And then the final 2 years are spent at Columbia, where you'll be able to specialize within your major a little bit further. But the entry requirement wise, both schools do look at the application. We do have an admissions committee from both schools that do that. But the entry requirements themselves will be a little more in line with Columbia's requirements. So, but still very similar to the Trinity requirements, if that hopefully that makes sense. But also with the dual BA program, you can apply to Trinity separately as well as the dual BA program. But unfortunately, if you're considering Columbia, you cannot apply to the dual BA as well as Columbia, mainly because everyone starts off at Trinity. So it's an easy way to transition into Trinity if you wanted to do that. But that's a little bit about the program in a snapshot, but I'd be happy to send more details if you wanted as well.
Cool, thanks, Amanda. I know one question that I get asked a lot has to do with kind of with citizenship. So, you know, what we've mentioned here in terms of specifically the costs have to do with non-EU costs for students, but we do get questions from students and parents who say, you know what, I have an EU passport, I'm an Irish citizen, or I'm a German citizen. What does that mean for me? Amanda or Kendall, do you want to maybe weigh in on what Ireland has to say about that question?
I'll let you go, Kendall, if you want, since I've just answered as well.
So at least for UCD, we have a really handy flow chart, and it typically more relies on what your residency status is and how long you may have been living in the EU. So I think where we get the most common question in relation to citizenship is with fees. So if you've been living in the EU for a certain number of times, you can qualify for EU fees, but otherwise you would be a non-EU fee paying student, regardless if you have citizenship in an EU country. But it is also very confusing, and we have handy flowcharts to help determine that. So if you have any specific questions about whether or not you qualify for EU fees based on your citizenship, then you're welcome to reach out to us.
The optional one.
Yeah, and I would say too that each of our universities, if not on the main international student website, but definitely on the Fees and Finance Office website, is going to have a link to that same kind of flow chart or that assessment tool that you can use to determine that. And then the three of us are definitely resources as well if there are any questions about that. You know, one thing too, kind of with regard to the application cycle, maybe each of us can go through really quickly and tell our audience kind of, you know, when our applications open, whether they're rolling, and kind of how that works. Amanda, do you want to start with Trinity's policy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say first also the EU citizenship question is very similar at Trinity to UCD, where it's residency based. So I just wanted to throw that in there too. But yeah, for applications, our portal on our website opens usually first week of October, so coming up soon. And we do have a rolling decision until June, typically. We advise students to apply before the 1st of February if you wanted to get a decision by April. And some of our programs do have a 1st of February deadline, such as music, drama, medicine, things like that. But I'd say our decisions are usually quicker than that. You don't have to wait till April. We normally would get back to you within 4 to 6 weeks with the decision.
For UCD, our applications open October 1st, and we are also rolling admissions through the spring. However, we do have a couple of scholarships that it would be beneficial to apply to UCD early for. So our largest scholarships and most competitive scholarships have a February deadline, and you have to have a UCD offer before you're allowed to apply to those. So we would recommend applying by December 1st or January 1st if you're interested in the Global Excellence Scholarships, which is 50 to 100% tuition. Other than that, rolling admission through the spring unless a program fills. And we often try to get admissions decisions back within 4 to 6 weeks as well, but ideally sooner than that.
And for University College Cork, our application for undergraduate programs, it does tend to open a little bit later than Trinity and UCD. Our application actually doesn't open until mid-December. So kind of it gives students kind of the full first semester to really put together their application. And once those applications open, we assess those on a rolling basis from about December 10th. So within about 4 to 6 weeks of a completed application, students will get a decision on that. We don't have kind of any early action or early decision deadlines. We do have scholarships, but as of right now, those scholarships are not deadline based. Although I would encourage students to apply kind of earlier rather than later, because some of our more competitive programs that may have fewer spaces available, may fill up, by March and April. So if you can get your application completed by December, January, February, I'd encourage you to do so. That's kind of off your plate for your senior year, and you can kind of enjoy the second half of it. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. Let's see here, any other questions? Another one I tend to get a lot is actually about transfer credit. So whether, we accept transfer students or, for students who are maybe enrolled in dual enrollment options in high school, how that works.
I'll take the first slot here. So yeah, I also get asked that a lot of times. So especially for students doing AP credits, I'm wondering if those can be transferred over. We absolutely take transfer students at Trinity. There are some specific guidelines for how to do that and who can transfer over. Typically, you have to meet the entry requirements for your current year studying. So as a first year student, we'd still be looking just briefly at your GPA and any exams you've taken. But then we'd also want to make sure that you've met the curriculum for the year that you're transferring into. So making sure that you have already completed the equivalent to that first year at Trinity. So that's briefly how transferring works. But if you're taking transfer credits themselves while you're in high school, those are a little bit harder to transfer over simply because there's no general education requirements. So say you want to study biology, but you've done an AP or dual enrollment in history, you're not going to be taking a history class as part of your biology degree, so that there's nowhere really to transfer that credit to. So if it's within a subject that you are majoring in, then there's a possibility of discussing that with a course director, but they're usually the ones who would make a final decision on any credit transferring over. But generally, it's not very typical.
I think Amanda said it perfectly. UCD has a very, very similar process and policies in regard to AP credit and transfer policies. So well done. I would have said the same thing.
Yeah, I really have nothing to add. I think, that's one type of policy that doesn't tend to differ very much between any of the universities. So while we all have kind of unique entry requirements or application processes, that one for transfer credits does tend to stay the same across universities. One thing I would add, if you are applying in or attempting to apply in as a transfer student, it's still the same first year application that you would be filling out. So even if you do have transfer credit, you do need to apply in as a first year student, and then we'll look at your credits afterwards. Just one little piece of advice. Just curious for Kendall and Amanda, what is one piece of advice that you would give to students who are looking to apply or looking to study in Ireland? Maybe something that they can expect that might be a little bit different about their experience with us.
Yeah, I mean, as far as applying, I'd say my top tip is always to reach out to one of us. It's the biggest pleasure of our job is getting to speak to U.S. students and talk about our own experiences living abroad, but also being able to guide you through that application process and answer any of those, even the tiny questions you might have about how how do I get on a bus? How do I, find my way to, to the campus from the airport? Like little things like that, that we are always available to kind of answer those questions, as well as how do I fill this part in on my application? So that's always a big tip, but I always say is please get in touch if you're interested. We're always happy to help. But then as far as being on, like actually being a student on one of our campuses, I'd say at Trinity, the biggest difference probably would be that, and I think this is European in general, is that independent learning and independent thinking as far as how your studies go. So a lot of times in the US, either at high schools and at colleges, there's a lot more quote unquote hand holding, where you have more of a structure to your program. You know how much a test is going to be, as in regards to your total grade. So you might not have that same kind of structure depending on the program, of course, and the university. But I'd say independent learning is a huge part of being a European student. So you will, it will be sort of on you to keep being, having kept up with your reading, for example, on your course, things like that. So that's a huge thing I always like to highlight to students, to say, kind of get ready for that when you're coming abroad.
Yeah, that was very well put, Amanda. Gosh, aside from that, I would probably add that we know that going abroad for college sounds really scary, and you may feel like you're the only one who's going to be from a different country, but Ireland has so many international students that you're going to find such a large international student population on every campus, and every campus embraces international students and is programming for international students, and it's much more easy to plug in, and not as nerve-wracking as you may think. So on that same note, you can always reach out to us, but I know at least UCD, we also have current students that we can connect you to as well. So if you have questions and you would rather hear it from a student's perspective, we're always happy to connect you with a recent alum or a current student who would be happy to share their perspectives and experiences as well.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that's been said. And just to add to, one thing that I say to students and counselors and parents when they ask, like, what are some of the difficulties, or what do you see American students having trouble with when they come over to Ireland? In my experience, it's actually not too different than the same bumps in the road and the same growing pains that you would have whether you went to college 30 minutes down the road from where you grew up or a couple hours away. It's that same type of figuring out how to live life on your own and be independent, and maybe not have mom and dad there to kind of keep track of you and keep you on task all the time. Learning how to cook, learning how to do your laundry. All of those are part of the university experience, and it is going to be challenging, but it is very rewarding at the end of the day. And I think being rather than across state lines, being across the Atlantic, and you're not able to just jump in the car and go have granny make you dinner every weekend. Although you could probably make a couple of Irish students that'll bring you home to have their grannies make you dinner. It really helps develop you into a very independent person, maybe a little bit more quickly than you would at a university where you're a little bit closer to home. I think university education abroad gives you ownership over your experience to a degree that maybe the US doesn't, or wouldn't be until later on in your experience. And even if maybe things don't look exactly the same, you can still nurture your passions the same way that you would, or that you did before. So while we don't have Greek life on our campuses, there are other clubs and societies where you can make connections and have a lot of fun and get to know people very well. We have sport, we have Harry Potter, we have everything. So, we'd really encourage you to, maybe expand your horizons and think about, what you want out of your university experience and how our campuses might match up to that. Cool. So we have, I think, 5 minutes left before we have to move on. But maybe as kind of one final thought, I thought maybe each of us could maybe say what our favorite thing about either our campuses or about our cities or just Ireland in general might be. Kendall, would you like to go first? I'm going to not pick on Amanda first this time.
Oh man, gosh, the first time I went to UCD, I felt so at ease because it felt so familiar. I think it is a very accessible campus with so many supports that students are used to in the United States. And so I feel like it is an amazing campus for student support. And it's so close to Dublin. Dublin is just a fun city. You can't go wrong whether you're in the heart of Dublin or if you're only like a 20-minute bus ride away. But overall, I feel like UCD's campus is very approachable and accessible and friendly for international students.
Yeah, I'd have to kind of echo a lot of that. I think just because we're both in Dublin, it's a great place to be. I love that. I love that Trinity's in the city center because there's so much around you as a student, but also once you're on campus, it doesn't feel like that. So it's really lovely. But I think my favorite thing on campus is definitely our old library because you do feel like you're in Harry Potter. It's, you know, got these books that go from floor to ceiling, really high vaulted ceilings. It's just really a beautiful place to be. And also being able to visit the Kells, which is a 9th century document, like where there's not many places you can do that, but you can do it on campus, which is just really, really neat. But yeah, I'd echo everything else. You know, the Irish people in general are very friendly, very warm. You won't feel like an outsider. You will feel very much welcome in Dublin, in Ireland, and at Trinity.
And I think I'd add about Cork. So we're a smaller city, but what I love about it is its approachability and its walkability. I'm actually originally from Ohio myself, southeastern Ohio actually, and you know, sometimes I just really like being in a small town atmosphere where you get to know people and you can walk around and really explore on your own and not have to worry about, you know, catching a bus or a train or something. So that's something I really love about Cork. What I love about our campus too is its kind of commitment to environmentalism and sustainability. So we have over 120 different species of trees on our campus, including California redwoods and a lot of really cool nature walks. Our campus is actually right in the middle. It's on an island in the middle of the River Lee. So it's really beautiful. And we're a really good kind of happy medium between old world Europe, because we have some buildings that date from the 19th century when we were founded. And then we have more modern buildings, including an art gallery on campus. So for me, it's a great experience. So thank you so much. Our contact details are there again. And, you know, clearly we love talking about Ireland. So please do reach out to us for any other questions.
Thank you all for attending this session. I do want you to stay on for a few minutes after we end this meeting to take a quick 4-question survey. There's the link to sign up for more sessions if you want to learn more about different universities. And then there are recordings available for all of the sessions that we are conducting in our virtual exploration. And for our panelists, there will be a list of participants that will be provided to you on behalf of StriveScan and OACAC. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.